Three little girls went to summer camp expecting friendship, campfires, and a week of fun. But on one night in June 1977, Camp Scott became the scene of one of Oklahoma's most disturbing crimes. Nearly 50 years later, people are still asking the same question. Who was responsible for the unaliving of 3 young Girl Scouts? Camp Scott was a Girl Scout camp located in Mize County, Oklahoma, near Locust Grove. In June of 1977, dozens of girls arrived for a summer camping trip. Among them were 3 friends, 8-year-old Lori Lee Farmer, 9-year-old Michelle Heather Guse, and 10-year-old Doris Denise Milner. For these girls, it was supposed to be a normal camping experience, sleeping in tents, making memories, and enjoying time outdoors. But on the night of June 12th, something happened that would turn Camp Scott into one of Oklahoma's most infamous crime scenes. Before the unalivings happened, there were strange incidents at the camp that investigators later looked at more closely. Someone had broken into the camp area and left behind a threatening message. The note reportedly contained a warning that 3 girls would be unalived. At the time, many people believed it could have been a cruel prank, and the threat was not treated as a serious warning. After the unalivings, that note became one of the details that haunted investigators and the public. On the night of June 12th, the girls went to sleep in their tents in the Kiowa unit of Camp Scott. The area was wooded and separated from some of the other campers. Sometime during the night, an intruder entered the area. The next morning, when the girls did not wake up as expected, counselors discovered that something was terribly wrong. The camp quickly went from a place of summer fun to the center of a massive investigation. Lori, Michelle, and Doris had been unalived. Investigators immediately began searching the area for clues, but the location created challenges. The camp was surrounded by woods and evidence collection was difficult. Authorities looked at possible suspects, including people who knew the area, people with criminal histories, and anyone who may have had access to the camp. One name quickly became the focus of the investigation: Jean Leroy Hart. Hart was a convicted criminal who had escaped from prison in 1973 and was considered dangerous. He was familiar with the area around Camp Scott, and investigators believed he had the opportunity to commit the crime. He became the main suspect, and after a large search, Hart was captured and charged with the unaliving. The case gained national attention as prosecutors prepared to argue that Hart was responsible. In 1979, Jean Leroy Hart went on trial. Prosecutors presented evidence they believed connected him to the unalivings, including forensic evidence and testimony. But the defense argued there were problems with the investigation and that the evidence was not strong enough. After hearing the case, the jury found Jean Leroy Hart not guilty. The verdict shocked many people. The families of the victims were left without the answer they had hoped for. Even after the trial, the case never disappeared. As technology improved, investigators revisited evidence using newer forensic methods. DNA testing brought new discussions about whether Hart may have been connected to the crime. However, because Hart died in 1979, shortly after his trial, there was never another chance to put the case before a jury. Today, the Oklahoma Girl Scout unalivings remain officially unsolved. Some believe Jean Leroy Hart was responsible. Others believe there are still unanswered questions about the investigation. But one thing remains clear. Lori Lee Farmer, Michelle Heather Guse, and Doris Denise Milner were 3 young girls whose lives ended far too soon. Almost 5 decades later, Camp Scott is still remembered, not because of what happened there, but because 3 families are still waiting for the truth. What do you think happened that night at Camp Scott?